What's up, everybody? My name is Ricky.
And my name is Angel, and this is Undefiled.
Undefiled. Something that we have been wanting to do for a long time now, but we haven't necessarily done it, and I guess we'll talk about why, and we're getting into all that stuff later. But welcome, y'all. This is our very first attempt at a podcast, very first attempt at recording a video together in this context. But, you know, our need for the content that we're trying to bring out is more important than the discomfort that we may have with, you know, is this going to work or how's this going to look and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
When we think about the podcast name, Undefiled, is a name that we really stuck with. It's because it's one of the goals for Christian marriages. One of the things that I think mark us immediately is we wanted to be clear that Undefiled is all about reclaiming Christian
sexuality.
Christian sexuality. Like that's the goal and that's the function of it. Because sexuality and Christian are two terms that don't always go together.
Right.
And so, and that's one of the things that we've been married, you know, for a minute now. As a matter of fact, you know, one of the things that really prompted us to go ahead and do this is we are celebrating right now. It's our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah,
right now in this moment. So we are a decade into this thing. And I've always said, I never wanted to be one of the couples, you know, one of them couples, you know, like that's been married for 5 minutes.
And then they put out a book.
Right, and they put out a book, and I'm like, don't nobody care what you got to say. Right. You ain't got enough.
Like, you don't know anything. Why would I listen to you?
Exactly. And so I'm like, I wanted to wait until, like, we got some skin in the game. We've been doing this thing for a decade, and then even our relationship together. So very interesting about our relationship. My wife is really the only serious relationship that I've had in my life. Of course, you know, high school and stuff, I had girlfriends, but a little bit about who we are. We started dating. I was 20.
And I was 19.
You were 19. And my wife is the only person that I've ever been like close to. Like on top of, like of course she's the only person I've ever been intimate with. Like I lost my virginity to my wife. You lost your virginity to me.
Yeah.
Story of how that happened is very interesting, but
that's another podcast.
That was of another day. But we really got together. So while we've been married for 10 years, we started dating in 2009. So we've been together a little bit more than 10 years, and we didn't have any.
15, almost
going on 15 years, right? And I don't think we had any of those like weird breaks where it's like we're not talking right now for 6 months. Like we started 2009, and we've been going ever since, right?
Been going strong ever since. Been together. Haven't had those random breakups or random being angry at each other moments. Like we've been going strong. Not always healthy, but strong for 10 whole years or 15 years.
That's a statement. It ain't always been healthy. but it's been strong. And so, like the point of is, why are we doing this podcast called Undefiled, and why is it? We feel like it's such an important topic because the reality is, like, just to be frank and get into it, and I don't know the podcast etiquette, so I'm going to just, like, be me 100%, is most of the time when it comes to sexuality and Christians, I'm irritated. Right. Like most of the time. It's an irritation because one of the things that happens, especially in my context, like I serve as a local pastor over our local church. I serve as executive pastor in our local church, and we are very embedded in serving in our local church. And just one thing I noticed, like over years and years of being in church or being around church people, being raised in Christianity, being raised up in church all my life, is that the conversation and the stigma around sex in church, usually that equals bad, evil. It hurts.
It's negative.
You're going to hell. It's not presented in a positive note.
It's not.
And like one of the things that I know this is a statement, and I think it's one of the things that we stand by, is we really, at least I really feel like the best sex on the planet should be in a Christian marriage.
Yeah, the best sex should be in a Christian marriage. There should be no reason that the world is outdoing us sexually.
Right. And when we say us, people who have accepted and fully embraced that God has made us, he's our creator, but not only is he our creator, we have a relationship with him through Jesus Christ, and through that relationship, he's the Lord and Savior of our lives. And I have to believe that God didn't just save my soul, but forgot about my body. He didn't just give me instructions on how to get to heaven, which which he did.
Right.
But he also gave me a template, and he also gave me a mandate on how to occupy and how to operate in this thing called life.
Right.
In this thing called marriage. I believe God created marriage. God created our bodies. God created our nerve endings. God created every single thing that makes us who we are. I don't think it's by mistake. And I think God created the orgasm.
Yes, he did. Hallelujah.
I think it's from him. And so I think I need to get context from him on, God, how does this body you gave me work? And I got to be honest, we could talk about that for a little bit. I think Christianity, in an attempt to maintain purity, in an attempt to keep us pure, at least my experience growing up in Christianity, sex was demonized.
It was.
Sexuality was demonized. And it was pretty much the conversation of when we did grow up hearing about sex and the conversations about sex, it was a negative tone.
It was. Every single time. There was never a time outside of saying when you married, you can have sex. But there was never a talk about how do we keep ourselves? How do we grow up and have a healthy mindset when it comes to sex? We're always taught that it's a negative thing, it's a bad thing, especially as a woman. We're taught that being promiscuous is something that's not holy. It's not, and it is not holy. In certain contexts it's not, but it's never been taught how to be healthy sexually so that when you are married, you know how to tap into that.
And that's the thing I'm noticing. The switch is hard. Like for us, when we got married, I had a certain mindset about what Christianity was going to be or what Christian marriage was going to be. And I had a certain mindset about, sex was going to be. And just to be real and 100%, we struggled.
We struggled terribly.
Like our sexual disconnection, incompatibility,
and our sexual expectations.
It was all messed up. And I found myself having to learn a whole lot of stuff that I'm like, if somebody had like sat me down and prepared me for not just like doing marriage, but if somebody had sat me down and prepared me for, hey man, like if you want to maximize your sex life, if you want to have the best sexual experiences, like that's a Bible study I would have signed up for.
I'm telling you, first one in line.
Like it's a Bible study I would have went to. And then you see the contrast of everybody else and everything else is very, very vocal and progressive when it comes to the sexual ideologies. Like when it comes to the idea of sex, when it comes to the presentation of sex, when it comes to the image of sex, like it's not hard to find in your favorite TV show. It's not hard to find in your favorite book. You got your 50 Shades of Grey. You got your Bridgerton books. You got, you have all these different things. You got magazines. You got websites. You got pornography.
Of course.
You got all these different things. The average mainstream movie today is very sexualized. And so sexual expression is not something that's a secret, and it's not even something that's hidden. I think the thing that I'm starting to identify and recognize is that the church, the church in general has been somewhat silent about the term sex. It hasn't been something talked about. It's not something that young people are really prepared for marriage. The most that we hear about sex when it comes to Christianity and church, the most we hear about it is wait until you're married to have it.
And that's the end of the conversation.
So it leads us to the question, after you're married, after you are in a marriage relationship, how do you make the sex happen?
Right. How do you flip the switch?
How
do you turn it on?
Yeah, and it's like I'm at a place now, like especially being 10 years into marriage, I'm at a place now where I want our sex to be amazing. Like I really want it to be, I want to be fulfilled by it. And one of the things that I know is problematic for a lot of couples is, how do you just come into marriage and expect this magic switch to happen, that everything's supposed to be good, everything's supposed to be pleasant, everything's supposed to be mind blowing. I mean, like I had all the daydreams of when we were dating. I was like, we're gonna be married. I'm gonna be in an apartment. And I had it all like set up in my head the right kind of way. I'm gonna be married, I'm gonna be in the apartment, and you always had on like this wrap dress, little wrap dress where you're tied on the side. And like I had this idea in my head where you're gonna come home and then you had like I call them thong sandals because they're like, you know what I'm talking about, like the elevated, the heel sandals.
They're like heel sandals, but they're like a little thong, like flip flop sandal.
And like this is like a old daydream. So this is back when girls was rocking like, is it French tip toes?
Yep, regular French tip. Tip nails.
So like you walk in the door, you got the French tip, nails on your toes. You got the thong sandals on. You got on an ankle bracelet. This daydream is very detailed.
I see.
You got on an ankle bracelet, legs looking nice. You got on the wrap dress. You got your hair down, and I don't know that style is shh. It's like,
oh my God.
I don't know that style, but it's a certain style where your hair is down, and it's like you walk through the door, and it's like, hey baby, I'm home, and you just like undo that dress, and like from there on, it's boom, like it's just an overall amazing experience, and that's a daydream, and that was my reality coming into marriage. I was like, that's about to be every day. Mm-hmm. Well, didn't quite happen like that,
right?
And I found myself very, very unprepared to be able to navigate and build a healthy sex life.
Right.
And so I'm like, yo, we need to do a better job as like I know the church does, but individuals, we have to do a better job of being prepared for not just sex, but being prepared on how to actually have a thriving love life. Mm-hmm. While you're still trying to be two separate individuals, trying to merge your life together, trying to be one flesh, trying to serve your local church, trying to make money, trying to have a job, trying to
be parents. Ooh.
Especially when kids come into the equation, trying to raise kids, and not understanding that all of those separate elements affect your sexual connection to each other. Mm-hmm. And how you have to really learn that sex is not automatic. Sexual chemistry is not automatic. That one of the biggest lies that needs to be debunked is this honeymoon phase.
Right. I think the honeymoon phase literally only lasts like a week, 2 tops.
Facts.
If that.
Facts.
Because once you get back into real life, and here's what I think. I really think it's a week or 2 based on the couple that is like the young couple that's just married, no kids, no outside factors. We're not even getting into the conversation of like a blended family who may be coming back from their honeymoon and they have jobs, they have kids. We're not even on that vein. I'm just talking about the couple who is young, married, and they just got together. They've just gotten married and they're going off to their honeymoon. That phase literally only lasts about 2-3 weeks tops.
You don't last that long.
It doesn't last long because once you get back into everyday life, the rose-colored glasses kind of come off and you're now living with somebody who you really don't know fully.
Right. And you got to learn them and they got to learn you. And that's its own process in itself. Mm-hmm. And if you're just expecting that the chemistry and the spontaneity, all that stuff is going to automatically be there, you find yourself, like I was, extremely disappointed when you see, like, why is the sexual connection not easy anymore?
Right.
It's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be, but it's hard to navigate when, like, why I'm not feeling it when, like, most of the day you've been irritated with each other. Like most of the day you was like, like it was great at the altar. They were, it was amazing at the altar. I loved them. But like what happens if it's like a random Tuesday, 8 a.m. and it's like, they kind of get on my nerves though. And you have to navigate that. You got to navigate those personalities. You got to navigate those differences. And you would be set up with such a head start if you understood, hey, you're married, sex life is going to be great, but it's got to be a priority and it's got to be an intention of you and your wife, or the wife and the husband. It's got to be an intention
from
that both of you engage actively on a consistent basis. There has to be a routine that is created that garners and fosters a healthy sexual environment in your home. Yeah. And if you just sitting around and waiting for it to automatically happen, you're going to find yourself having what we had, those 2 and 3 weeks of just that weird vibe where like, you ever been married and it's like you more like roommates than you are spouses? Right. And you find that and it don't feel good. And it's one of the things that led us, what was it, 2 years ago?
I think 3.
3 years ago. It's one of the things that led us to go to marriage counseling.
Yeah. No, it was 2. It was 2.
2 years ago. Yeah, it was like right after the pandemic had started. And we found ourselves like it was literally, I remember when we filled out the questionnaire for counseling, it was like, what are you going for? What's the biggest thing? And we put in disconnection. because we were married. And here's the thing, like till this day, we have still never had like a drop down, like a big nasty argument.
Right.
We've never
there was never a time in the marriage where I was like, I don't know if I want to be married to him.
Right. And so like the warning signs weren't as extreme.
Right.
But what we found was like while we weren't fighting and while we weren't like fussing at each other or while we weren't toxic in the regular terms, like equally as detrimental, we found that we were disconnected.
Right.
We found that we were like married, but we weren't really connecting. And like it took for us
talking.
to, right. And I was like, number one, like that's not an undefiled marriage.
It's
like
not.
that's not the kind of relationship I want. We was approaching a decade of marriage and I was like, I really want a relationship that's full of passion, that's full of transparency, that's full of vulnerability. I want the kind of marriage where I was asking myself, like, is this the marriage that you want? And I wasn't asking myself questions like, you know, it could be worse. I wasn't doing all that. I was asking myself, is my marriage at the best version that it could currently be? Is my wife, is she as satisfied as she could be?
Right.
Am I satisfied? Like, yeah, nobody's cheating. Those aren't the metrics for me to determine whether my relationship is healthy or unhealthy. The measure I have for our relationship, the measure I have for myself is are we optimized to be at the best level that we can possibly be emotionally, spiritually, and sexually? Yeah. Like, are we optimized? Are we operating as well as we could be operating?
Right.
Because for me, I'm like, if there's another level of my marriage that is out there, why am I not chasing it? You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I not going after it? Like, it's what I actively want. I want that highly passionate marriage. And while it's going to be very different, it's not like the movie scene magic, that automatic. Like, that ain't real.
It's not. It's not real.
That don't exist. So what is the version of it that does exist? How do we
get there?
Right. How do we get there? How do we have that, like, that fiery passion for each other? How, like, you know, you looking at me and I'm like, what's up? And I'm looking at you and I'm like, what's up? And we're looking at each other and we like, what's up?
Right.
Like, how do we keep that fire lit?
Right.
To where I want our marriage to be to the point where both of us are fully fulfilled and we both are getting what we need from each other. Yeah. And we both are serving each other and we both are satisfying each other. I'm realizing that takes an intentional approach.
It really does.
To have like as an everyday reality in your marriage.
Right. And that question is how this podcast became a thing, because we really want to dig into the how of it all. We want to build systems and processes and share what we've learned over these last 10 years of how do you bring that passion back? How do you truly become undefiled? And how do you build something that is made to be that longevity? Yeah. Like, how do you build the healthy habits to encourage those passionate moments that we always look for?
Yeah, and honestly, it came about us having conversations about, like, me and my wife love TV. We love relationship TV. Love is Blind. What's the other one that we watch? Married at First Sight. And then also just our regular TV shows and stuff. And then conversations with friends, observations of seeing family members over the years, church people, God knows, been around church, going to marriage seminars, going to marriage conferences. Like, we always are observing things and noticing things, and we always find ourselves having conversations about, like, why is that like that, and how did that person not see that? Like, we I know dating and definitely married, whether we're in the car driving or whether we're at home, like, we'll literally be watching a TV show and we don't pause the TV show because somebody says something to somebody, a wife says something to a husband says something to a wife,
or a situation happened where we're like, how did that happen? Like, what's going on? Like, what do you think about this? And it turns into like a 2-hour conversation.
2-hour conversation about relationships and about how, and the common denominator that we always come down to is that why do people see marriage as a place where sex goes to die? True. Like, why is marriage, how has marriage become the graveyard of your sex life?
I don't understand it. Like, especially when you think about God's design for it, it just doesn't match. Think about it. In all the movies and TV shows, you hear the wife being considered or being compared to the ball and chain, or like something so negative, like, oh God, I gotta go home to my wife and kids. Like, how did that become the negative thing? Or how did it become like I'm going to a yoga class as a woman so I can watch this hot instructor, or
right, exactly.
How did marriage become the place where we look for everything outside of it?
Yeah, and I got a problem with it, and I refuse to accept that as a reality for marriage. And I think we're not alone. I think couples, especially Christian couples, is really the audience that I'm trying to target, because I really do believe Christian couples understand that we have a responsibility to show the world that not only do we love God, but we love sex. Not only do we love God, but we love sex, that we will not just pass sex off as if God didn't create it.
Right.
That God didn't sanctify it for marriage, and that God didn't give it as a gift for us to stay close and intimate with each other. And I'm like, man, once we start realizing that, once I start reading the Bible for myself and growing in my own relationship with Jesus, and I really begin to submit our marriage to him, I really begin to see and understand then at that very moment that God created sex for us. It was a gift he gave to married people to fully express their love and intimacy with each other, because ultimately marriage is a picture of Jesus in the church. We know that as you read the scripture, it's one of the biggest metaphors of, if you want to see what does Jesus look like according to the Bible, you should be able to look at a man and a woman and how they love each other and how they are connected to each other. And that's supposed to be a type and a shadow of how much Jesus loves his people, how much Jesus loves the church. And I'm like, it hurts me. It's literally a painful thing when I see married people not living and experiencing life at the level that it was created for us to experience, because it hurt us and it's been damaging for us. And marriage counseling has been a game changer for us.
Our marriage.
Yeah, because we were honest, and while we were never at least in my calculation, it wasn't a divorce level type thing.
No,
but we were getting ready to permanently exist at a level of marriage where God had so many more levels for us.
Right.
And we were about to just accept that current version definition of our marriage when there was a better definition. And we're learning now, there are levels to this thing.
Yeah, there are.
And for the rest of our lives together, we get the opportunity to journey. And that's really what this is. We are not marriage experts at all.
Not at all.
But we are a couple that's really about this journey of this undefiled marriage and Christian sexuality, and learning what's the most pleasure that I can get out of this experience with this woman that I love. What are all the packages that God has given us, and have we opened all of them yet? And so we're on this journey.
Yeah.
And we know there are other couples that are on this same journey. And that's why Undefiled is being started. It's because we want to create a community of students, a community of people who have the same life experiences that we have. You love Jesus, you love each other, but you want your marriage to exist at the highest level. This is what Undefiled is for. Yep. And it's also to expose people who are not yet married. It's also to, how do we talk to this next generation, and how do we glorify marriage in a way where they actually want to get married?
Right.
How do we, we have two sons, and my goal as they are approaching their teenage years is to not bash sex in their heads.
Right.
I want to be equipped and prepared as a parent. How do I prepare my sons to understand, son, sex is the most beautiful, one of the most amazing things. Listen, son, let me tell you. It's an amazing thing, and it's something that when you get married, you are going to enjoy it. How do I get my sons to look forward to marriage instead of presenting it like, son, you don't need to have sex, it's gonna send you to hell. You're gonna burn.
I refuse to do that to my sons.
I'm not gonna do it where they're pretty much scared and afraid of their own sexuality, which is gonna push them to discover themselves and do certain things in secret like we did.
Exactly.
And it's going to make you go to outlets like I did, like pornography, because it wasn't readily available, meaning it wasn't sex. It still is in the church a taboo topic,
right,
where it's not something that's easily talked about. And so what did I do? I explored in secret.
Yeah.
I went to websites, I watched certain movies, I watched certain things, I was around certain things, anywhere I can get the information. And that's the thing about young kids, that's the thing about the next generation, is whether we think they're ready for what they're ready for or not, they're going to get it.
They're going to get it, and they're getting it younger because they have access to information.
Absolutely.
They have unwarranted access. Like, they can just go and search anything to their heart's desire. Like, and it's a dangerous place to have all that information but no guidance for it.
Right.
And so for us, like, I know that we've both sworn that we would not let our sons learn about sex and learn about relationships from the internet. Like, that's something we're going to talk to them about early at a young age.
Facts, yeah.
Because, like, whether we like it or not, they're being exposed to it.
They're being exposed to it. So it's not a matter of if they know about it. It's pretty much when they know about it. Because it's coming.
Because it's coming.
And I'd rather beat anybody else of the conversation before my son has to hear from anybody else.
Yeah.
And so that's what this whole undefiled thing about. It's a journey where we're going to be having conversations and we're going to be asking questions, and hopefully, you know, every week we'll be releasing some kind of content, some kind of episode, talk about different things. But the biggest thing we want to do is we want to build a community of people who are on the same journey as us, that we're not experts. And I believe there's a whole lot that we can learn from a community of people, a community of married couples, of Christian married couples who want to do the same thing that we do. They want to maximize their marriage.
Yeah.
They want to have the best sex that they could possibly have. And they want to understand. Like, I actively remember I was at a marriage conference. I churched it a long time ago. And one of the couples that was there, like, we were talking about, like, we were going all out for this marriage. Like, this was the one where we were, like, previewing the different things that they can use to enhance the bedroom experience. And people were in our room like, oh my God, what is that? Like, you like, they were trying to act like they were interested, but they was like, tell me more at the same time. And I remember, like, it was one woman in, like, one of the wives, she was in there like, and I remember after that session was over, like, she literally looked at me and she said to me, I have never in my life heard sex talked about with church people. The fact that Christians were talking about sex for her was like, growing up, it was just.
And she was a seasoned saint.
Yeah, she had been saved for a minute.
She had been saved for a minute.
And she was like, it's just something that you didn't talk about in church. And the biggest thing that was in my head was, why?
And I remember that conference because one of the things that blessed me a little bit was that it seemed like everyone in that room turned back into a student.
Right.
Like, everyone, you could see, like, they were learning things that they had never heard of before. And I'm sure that they probably went to their rooms, and they praised God a little bit when they got there, because it was an eye-opening thing. Yeah. Like, in marriage, is not sex. Married sex is not talked about enough. And the fact that we had people who were well, you know, up there in age that hadn't had these conversations with a Christian background, it just grieved me a little bit, but then it did my heart so much good because we were talking about it.
Right.
We were bringing it up.
That's our commitment, is to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Is to keep learning about it, is to keep digging deeper into it.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things I feel like needs to change about the church and about Christianity and about marriage. I believe people need to understand you can be married and your sex life don't have to die.
It does not. It should flourish.
It should flourish. You should be married. If you're a Christian and you're married, I'm going to say it again, you should be having the best sex on the planet.
Come on.
The best sex on the planet. And so that's our endeavor. That's our goal. That's the journey. This is Undefiled, where we are aiming to reclaim Christian sexuality. Yeah. So I'm excited. Happy 10-year anniversary, baby. I love you.
Happy 10 years. I love you too.
And y'all stay plugged, stay tuned. We're going to give y'all all the information on how to stay connected. This is our first time at this, so we really don't know what we're doing, honestly,
at all.
So we actively doing research on how to build certain channels and how to set up certain social media stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I think about like why we're doing this, is a conversation needs to be had, a community needs to be created, and we are really, really, really excited about connecting with other people out there who are committed to the same journey that we're committed on.
Yeah. I'm excited about seeing where it's going to go. I'm excited to see who it's going to touch. And I want to encourage you guys, leave comments, leave questions, send us messages, whether it's like a DM or anything. Like, we want to know what you guys want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, all kind of comments, whether you agree or whether you disagree. I mean, keep it respectful, all right, yeah. But keep it respectful. But yeah, if you don't agree with us, it's cool. Like if you don't agree, you don't agree. If you do agree, great. Either way, I want to engage because we're not just here to talk. We're here to learn and we're here to listen and we're here to do this thing together in this journey. And so this is Undefiled. This has been the first introductory origin episode. And we're so excited because there's so much more to come.
It is.
All right. Until next time, y'all.
Peace out.
We out.